Hello everyone, welcome to a violin video. I know I made a bunch of guitar videos, but I thought it was time to make a violin video because I want to also bring to attention that I will be in Los Angeles from February 18th to 21st for Christian van Hemert's Gypsy Jazz Summit organized by Tommy Davey, and I will be there to host 4 guitar workshops but also 2 violin workshops, and I want to show you a little bit about my approach to jazz improvisation on violin. And a lot of people assume that I kind of have the same approach on violin as I have on guitar. And if you have seen some of my guitar videos, you might think you know what I'm going to say. But in fact, it's quite the opposite. My approach on violin is very different. And that's because the violin is a very different instrument from guitar. Not only the sound and the technique, but also the way you approach playing on the instrument. A violin, you start violin usually as a classical player or maybe as a folk player, but it's very much tied to knowing the note names of all the notes you're playing. You know, you play in the first position, you learn, oh, here's a C and here's an E. And on guitar, usually you start very different. If you start with classical guitar, it might be the same. But if you start with folk music or rock, you usually start with learning some chord shapes and then learning some shapes for scales. But you're not actually talking a lot about note names. You know, it's more tied to frets. You know, like 6th fret, 7th fret, and that's something we never do in violin. So on guitar, I take more of an approach of learning specific shapes and then seeing what that shape sounds like. And on violin, I'm all about the notes, which notes am I going to play on this particular song or this chord progression. So I want to show you some ways you can get started with jazz violin improvisation. Let's say you're a classical player and you're new to jazz improvisation. Where do you get started? I'd say start with learning how to play on a 2-5-1. And that's a specific chord progression consisting of a 2 chord. Let's say it's a 2-5-1 in G, so it will be A minor 7, and then a 5 chord, which is D7, and then the 1 chord, that's G. Now you might say, oh, that's too much information. I don't know which notes are in those chords. But that's not important, because today we're not going to talk about the notes in those chords. We're going to talk about a way to approach playing on the first 2 chords, A minor 7, D7, with one specific scale. And that is the A Dorian scale. And that's the same scale as a G major scale, which you already know. You know this scale, right? But instead of starting on a G, we're going to start on A. But we're going to play the same notes. So it's still 1 sharp, F sharp. But instead of playing it from D to G, we're just going to start from A. And then you get these notes. So these are all the notes of a G major scale, but played from A to A. So now you might ask, why not start on the G? But that's because the sound changes when we start on this A. It sounds like a minor scale, because the third note is minor. And in the G scale, the third note is major. So by switching to an A, and by making that the focal point of the scale, we create a minor sound. And then the first exercise would be to improvise on an A minor 7 and a D7. And I made a little backing track, 2 bars A minor 7, 2 bars D7. And I will also upload a backing track on my YouTube channel where you can practice this. And then we're just gonna improvise with these notes. And it doesn't really matter what we'll do, I don't care about this specific motif or, this triad. I'm just gonna play over the backing track with these notes, but I'm gonna try to direct all my lines to one of 2 notes. Either the A, so that's the root of the scale, or the 6th note of the scale, which is the F sharp. So all my lines They don't have to end up there, but I'm trying to push them towards those two notes. And there's no specific system for that. You just use your ears, and you will hear it when it sounds weird. So let me demonstrate it. Backing track, A minor 7 2 bars, D7 2 bars, and I'm going to play A Dorian with a focal point on the A and the F sharp. A minor. Like that. Of course, I've done that many times, so I'm coming up with nice lines. And in the beginning, you just take a slower tempo. You can always download the video from YouTube with the backing track and slow it down, or you can actually on YouTube there is this button you can press, and then you can play the video at half speed. And then you just do it very slowly and just try to develop simple ideas. So a few things you have to pay attention to. The first thing is, of course, stick to the notes of the A Dorian scale. I think I put a chromatic note in there somewhere, but it doesn't matter. Little mistake. And the other thing is try to play eighth note lines. That doesn't mean you have to play continuous eighth notes, but it means that if you play a line, try to play them in an eighth note feel, you know, like da 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 da. Don't play too many quarter notes or triplets or quarter triplets. I did it sometimes. But the general language of jazz is eighth notes. So it's very important to become fluent in that. So that means that you play eighth notes, and when you stop a line, you just stop, and then you start a line again, playing eighth note patterns. Now, if you want, you can practice patterns. You can practice, for example, you can practice your third scale, which means that you play thirds up the scale, like. You've probably done that already if you've done any of the classical scale systems like Carl Flesch. And then you can also practice fourth scales, which is the same thing, but instead of thirds, you play fourths. A little bit more difficult if you're not used to it. And then another nice thing to practice is maybe sixths. It's the same thing, but you play sixths. Stuff like that, but don't make a system out of it. Don't feel like you have to practice these things because that can become boring. Just, if you feel like it, you can practice one of those things. That will be the first step. And then after you've done that for a while, there's more steps, but I'll make another video with those steps. Meanwhile, if you are in the vicinity of Los Angeles, see if you can come to the workshops, and we'll get into many more of these concepts. I'll have nice PDFs with everything worked out for you, and you can ask me all your questions. Okay, hope to see you there or in the next video. Bye.